Welcome to the next session on Taleo Social Sourcing. In this video, you will learn how to configure the company, jobs, users, and social channels sections of your social sourcing sites. Let's log into your Taleo configuration zone. And under the quick access menu on the left, click Social Sourcing. When you reach Social Sourcing, we're going to click Admin and then click into Configure Settings. Let's go ahead and click on Company. The company settings come pretty standard out of the box. Your client code should be automatically generated based on the code of your Taleo social sourcing zone. Your database version and your application version will automatically be entered and cannot be changed from here. If you need to upgrade your social sourcing site, you must go through an SR and request an upgrade. When we look at site preference has several options. It can be an employee-only site, an alumni-only site, or a hybrid. An employee-only site is going to be where employees can use the site and apply internally if you give them permission. An alumni site is a site where it is not necessarily your employees. It might be someone who maybe was termed or is an alumni of an organization, but they do need to have their own logins and you would have to create those separately. You can also have a hybrid site. Most companies use an employee-only site. Your active locales and default locales come preset. You can change them if you have a need. The Reset Site button resets all services and all caches for this application. Be very, very careful when pressing this button because all of your links could potentially change. Let's move down a little further and we're going to talk about company URLs. You do have the option to use a global vanity domain with social sourcing. A global vanity domain would be something like Acuity Cloud Solution Jobs.com versus using your upgrade.selectminds or your referrals.selectminds.com URL. In order to create a global vanity domain, it does require an open SR with Oracle and it requires several weeks of lead time. Here you will put your email domain in so that the system recognizes internal employees. You can also add your internal career site, your external career sites, any alumni site URLs, or profile edit URLs. You also have the ability to use front-end support. If you enable the support email enabled section, it does add a support email address, which is editable, to a lot of your messages or even on the main page of the social sourcing site. A lot of companies will do this if they want to offer an email option for candidates needing assistance. Lastly, in this section is the Google Analytics section. This allows you to create a Google Analytics ID that can create measurement around tracking jobs. You can enter the Analytics ID here and then click the link to open Google Analytics dashboard to review your analytics. I'm going to scroll back up to the top and click on Jobs. The first section in the Jobs area is the display preferences. You have to have at least one of these sections selected. And if you have more than two, only the first two will be selected. If I wanted to enable the post date as well as the requisition number, I can do that. And if I want to put the post date in front of the requisition number, it's a click and drag. I can also disable them by clicking it again. Coming down to the apply section, the view type is always going to be OTAX 17.4. Most of the time this is already set for you. However, if you do need to mark this setting, you can click on the pencil edit icon. And here are all of your options. Any recent Taleo implementations will always be OTAX 17.4. You also have the ability to have a redirect text enabled and your redirect text below. If you would like to edit any of the text that's in this social sourcing system, you can click on the pencil icon to edit. However, a warning, a lot of this text comes with pre-delivered HTML tags as well as pre-delivered dictionary tags. Should you make a change to any text and you remove any of the tags or remove any of the dictionary tags, it could change the redirect text to something that doesn't make sense or doesn't look nice. If you'd like the either internal candidate or external candidate to be able to join your talent community, there's a check option for this. Here's where you allow employees to apply. This means if this is enabled, employees can apply to internal postings. When it's disabled, employees cannot apply to postings. You also have the two messages below, which is the employee apply prevention message and the employee apply redirect message. What it does is it looks at the email address you're using to apply. If it matches the email address of your company provided under the company section, you will be shown this apply prevention message if the allow employees to apply is turned off. If the employee apply redirect message is turned on, you may receive a redirect message. You also have the ability to allow employees to sign up for job alerts. Very similar to the Join Talent Community option for external candidates, internal employees can create job alerts to inform them when jobs meeting their criteria of interest are posted. You can notify starved recruiters on a job apply. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. The Remember Me in your login allows them to, using cookies, remember who you are, so it only has to log you in partially. Then you have the option to prefer the original referrer. What this does is if more than one person refers the same external candidate to a position, if this is enabled, it will always prefer the first person who referred, not the most recent. This capture identification from applicants is actually not for the OTAX 17 version. This is for Taleo 14A or B and below. So this is usually not used right now. Let's move down to the ATS parameters section. What we do here is we are going to take the sources that we have in Taleo in the configuration section, and we are going to add those source codes here. So if we have a source code that is Facebook or LinkedIn, Twitter, and most importantly, a referral, we are going to take the code associated with that source in Taleo and we are going to use the pencil icon and add that code here. What this does is it allows the referral or the source to follow the candidate through social sourcing and into their candidate application. This is absolutely required if you are going to use referrals, as it will allow the external candidate and the referral information to be captured and sent over into Taleo on the referral tab. Along with referrals, we have the recommend section. What this does is it creates a notification if you have referred somebody. You can use this as the default subject. You can use the edit button to change. You can also use this as the default message, also using the edit button to change. You also have the ability to use the endorsement section. What this does is it allows the person who is providing the referral to provide additional information about why you'd be a great fit for this position. Underneath the filter section, we have show hot jobs filter to employees and show hot jobs filter to candidates. The hot job is associated with a setting that is set on the requisition in Taleo. In Taleo, when you go to the sourcing tab and you choose the career sections to post your positions to or your requisitions to, there is a little checkbox that says urgent need. If you click that checkbox, that urgent need checkbox in Taleo when posting your requisition, it will flag in social sourcing as a hot job. You can choose to show hot jobs to employees, and you can choose to show hot jobs to candidates. Similarly, we have a new flag option. You choose how long a requisition is considered new. In this case, we have a 30-day date range. So after 30 days, the job will no longer be considered new, and the new flag will be no longer visible. We also have a setting to show that new flag to external users, as well as trusted referrers. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. The last section is called internal information. This must be checked if you are going to allow internal candidates or employees to apply to internal jobs through this social sourcing site. If this is not enabled, they will not be able to access it. We're going to scroll back up to the top. We're going to skip Site Builder. We'll talk about that in another session. And we're going to go to Users. Generally, as in the previous session, we talked about users coming into the system using the employee import to load data into Taleo, which is then scraped by social sourcing. If you don't do that and you create your users manually, there is some functionality, especially with a username as well as a synchronized user delete function. We also have a registration section. The email confirmed sign-up allows you to require confirmation from anyone applying to requisitions through social sourcing. It will send them an email once they've applied and ask them to click a link to confirm. You also have the option to delete unregistered or unconfirmed candidates from your site. You also have the ability for the candidate to be required to pick their relationship during that registration process. You have an employee number validation. So if the person picks that they are an employee, if they add their employee number in, there's a validation there. as well as a choose department and location validation. There's also a choose locale and registration, as well as a terms and conditions check that you can also enable for registration. Partially log in, the likely user, really pertains more to trusted referrers instead of actual users, and we'll talk about that in 1 minute. You have the ability to do a login redirect, and you also have the functionality of top referrers and priority referrers. So let's take a minute to talk about the different types of referrers. An unaffiliated referrer is a referrer who is not an employee or not an alumni. That means somebody else, maybe an external candidate, is referring another external candidate to a job. A trusted referrer is a setting that you can enable, and based on configuration, trusted referrers can be allowed to partially log in to refer candidates or recommend candidates for jobs. They can upload candidate resumes, as well as see the new and hot jobs flags. Top referrers are going to be users that, based on configuration, can be regulated and scored by the system using specific criteria. So based on their number of job shares or clicks resulting from job shares, apply starts from external or internal applicants, I'll award them points. Your top referrers are going to be the referrers with the most points. You can also invite a recruiter to the system. What this does is it allows someone to recruit for the system if they are not added via the employee import scraping process. You can also grant recruiters access to referral on demand and talent community campaigns. This is going to be granting permission for someone that has the use social sourcing privileges, not admin, but use social sourcing privileges to actually go into campaigns and run referral on demands, as well as talent community campaigns. We can talk about that in another session. I'm going to scroll back up to the top. And lastly, log into social channels. When I click on social channels, there are 4 options available. There is Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Weibo. You'll notice LinkedIn and Weibo both have just one little enable disable button. That's because in order to use these, it requires an SR to set up the functionality on the Taleo side. Twitter and Facebook require consumer API keys as well as a consumer secret code. In Facebook, it's an application ID and an application secret code. Those have to be enabled in order to have the integration set up between the social sourcing channels. Both Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, as well as Weibo, require a developer's account. For example, it would be facebookdevelopers.com. You would actually have to create a Facebook or a Twitter or a LinkedIn developer's account to associate your business's account to your social sourcing account. So that was company, jobs, users, and social channels. Tune in to the next session where we'll discuss additional functionality.